now joined by number 5 UFC bantamweight Pedro Munhoz. Our first question goes to Gabriel Gonzalez with Kate Press.
Hello, Pedro. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. So it's been quite a few twists and turns, to say the least. Can you describe what the experience is like to finally reach fight week for this one?
Yeah, man. This definitely has been like a crazy things happening in the worldwide right now, all over the place. So I feel very grateful to have the opportunity to fight during pandemic, and besides that, just to be a part of a main event against another former champ. So has been crazy, but at the same time, it's not.
I'm glad you brought that up. You've been in big fights before, Cody Garbrandt, Aljo, but with a guy like Frankie Edgar who held the belt and he's been at the top for a while, would you say this is the biggest one of your career?
Yes, it's definitely like one of the biggest fights of my career, but I do believe also that every single fight, it's the biggest fight of my career. For the fights that I have previous, that's the reason that I'll be able to do this fight. I have just been fighting for the last 7 years over the UFC organization. I just fought the best fighters since my first fight. I got a 1 week notice against a guy number 3 back then, and Robbie Fawn, Brad Jones, Brian Caraway, like great guys and tough opponents. It's just showed that I go there and I do my job and I leave everything in the octagon. No regrets.
With Yoel Romero versus Uriah Hall off the card, now there's just even more attention. A lot of people would say they're all tuning in just to see you two fight. Is there, I guess, more pressure because there's more of a chance to really boost your name if you get a big victory?
Is a pressure if I think that way, but what I try to think, it's I do what I love. So for that, I'm very grateful for. Especially through pandemic, when we see like the economy worldwide, going very bad, and me here right now do what I love, fighting with a former champ. I think a what I think is like a pressure is for people right now at home that lost their job. Kids not going to school, and moms or dads, they're doing all that, taking care. you know Besides that, pressure is the homeless on the streets, things like that. I think that's a lot of pressure. It is a pressure. Yeah, it is a pressure, but at the end of the day, I'm doing what I love. And if I get hurt or if I don't get hurt, it's part of my job. It's fun. So it's all dependent like the point of view.
I understand that. Are you expecting anything different from Frankie at bantamweight compared to what you've seen from him at featherweight?
Oh yeah, definitely faster, stronger. Skills wise, he's gonna be sharper.
Final question for me. At bantamweight, there's obviously the big three at the top: Peter Yan, Aljo, Marlon Moraes. Who do you see coming out on top after all three of those guys, compete against each other?
Wow. Marlon Moraes has been a training partner of mine for the last year and a half. A guy that has a lot of capability there, a lot of skills, very strong. Audio, super, lot of skills as well. Smart fighter. Peter Yan, super tough. You know, it is. And then I do believe I get like a good victory Saturday night, so I throw my it's gonna throw me right there. I'm now number 5. We're talking about the number 1, 2, and 3. So I do believe I will get in that in the mix. So yeah, it's just a part of the evolution of the sport. It just has been great and see that much good athletes lately.
Thanks, Pedro.
No worries, thank you.
Our next question is from Jim Barcelone with the Miami Herald.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, Pedro, what is it like? And I know you fighters, you're focused on the fight, but you're in the main event, ESPN, UFC Fight Night. It's such a huge deal. It's such a big event. Just what is it like? Do you ever get to look back a little bit and just say, wow, this is so cool?
Definitely, man. That's a great question. This is really cool. I was just talk with this like in a, someone before you, and it's definitely the word that I can say that is very. I'm very grateful for that. It's pretty joy. Be able to make money. Through pandemic, being a part of the main event in UFC and fighting a former champ is just a lot of good things out there happening for a reason. And that's my chance right now, and that's the moment. And that's the reason that I love to do what I do. I do that with a lot of passion, and I feel very grateful.
If I'm correct on reading this, your last fight was June in 2019. What does that mean, that time? You're an experienced fighter. Does the experience help you because of that? How do you keep from not getting rusty?
Great question. Yeah, has been a little over than a year. Before fighting Aljo, I was fighting guys that was coming to fight. Aljo was the guy that was very smart. He was using his land. He was he was more a strategy in the fight. And in my point of view. So, and also I was able to, for the last year, to involve also my skills and get better in fighting a guy that sometimes he's not gonna come into my fight. Sometimes he's gonna just do enough to win by points and stuff like that. Sometimes it was not something that I was used to it, but I had like a little over than a year to get better in that sense of if a guy's gonna just winning just by points or things like that. So I could it was a good timing because I was able to get together with all my coaches and see what I did wrong in the fight, what I could do better. And we had all this time. A month later after the fight, I was back in the gym helping my friends getting ready for fights and stuff like that. And also was I took that fight, I took that loss like a learning process, for me to see what I need to get better at. And I do believe that I did my homework, and I do believe that I got a little bit smarter in that sense. And Saturday is a good test, to put it all that in perspective and putting my game style there.
And Pedro, you were hit with the COVID. You were supposed to fight earlier, but you got hit with the COVID. Just how bad was it for you during that time? How serious health wise was it? Was it just being in quarantine for a couple of weeks? How did that process go for you, and how serious did you get with that?
Yeah, I just see like it's all depend how we see things, I just in that moment I just try to be grateful, to nothing worse could have happened with me and my family. We all got sick. We all, tested positive for COVID. But, you know, luckily and very grateful that, you know, go to hospital and things like that. I have a daughter, small daughter in the house, my wife and things like that. We got felt a little bit sick, but it was something that we could have worked through, and we're here today.
And just two more real quick. The pandemic, did you train differently because you had experienced COVID? Did you train differently after that with ATT or no?
I took like a week, and that week that I took off, I did a lot of tests. I was very grateful to Dan Lambert, the guy that owns American Top Team. He was, really like taking care of me and every single fighter at American Top Team. I was getting tested almost every day, and all the tests was coming back in negative. As soon as I went back to Florida, I think it was at the end of whatever, So it was as soon as I got back to Florida, I did the test that day. I was negative. The day before, I did another test. 2 days later, I got the results. I was negative as well. Did some other blood tests and things like that. And I took a week off so I can recover from driving back Vegas in Florida. Took 40 hours. Drove with my friend Mike Brown, which got tested positive as well. He was with Jorge Masvidal in that to fight Usman. We drove back, so yeah, so was able to all my tests come back positive, so I could not put it, other people like in risk and things. And we finished this training camp great, very strong.
All right, I had a couple more, but you know what? Let someone else ask. Thank you so much, Pedro. All the best. Fight night on ESPN, UFC.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our next question is from Damon Martin with MMA Fighting.
Hey, Pedro, kind of going back to the COVID situation last month, can you kind of walk me through the emotion of, going all the way out to Vegas, you're getting ready to fly to Fight Island, and they tell you test positive for COVID. I talked to Mike Brown. I think I actually talked to him while you guys were in the car, and he said, it's an emotional experience to go through that and know that you're putting other people at risk, all the things that kind of walk through that. Like, can you kind of give me the idea of the emotions you felt during that time?
Definitely, man. Definitely. It's a great question. It was definitely like a roller coaster emotions, getting Vegas, get ready to fight, big fight of my career, and then get the next day a call saying I got tested positive for COVID. I was immediately shocked at the moment. But few minutes later, I starting like understanding more. It's just a bad situation that we are all going through right now, and I just trust the process, and the same day as we were driving, me and Mike Brown driving to Florida, I got a text saying that a message text saying that the fight was going to happen, and Frankie was not fighting nobody in Abu Dhabi. So in that moment, I felt happy again, happy again. So as soon as I came back home, me and my family, we make sure we were good, and luckily that we got sick, but nobody had to go to the hospital, no health issues. I was very grateful for that, very lucky, knowing that a lot of people are suffering a lot through this COVID. I see, we see in the news, which we should not believe as much we do, but anyway, people were getting sick, so for me it was very grateful for. As soon as I got back to Florida, we got a test every day in the day, and the test came back the next day negative. We like, oh, it's weird. We took another test and negative again. So I even though I took another week off to make sure it was negative, like the travel itself was a long drive. Imagine Vegas to Florida, it was literally cross country. We drove that, we didn't stop, so it was exhausting. So I took that week to rest, and then 7 days later I started training again, pick up the intensity little by little, make sure everything was good. And a week later, I got a great news that they pushed that fight a week later to the main event. So it gave me extra motivation to do what I do, and just to show like the best version that I could be myself.
Yeah. Obviously, Pedro, you've had a lot of big wins in this division, and you're still in that top five. And Frankie is new coming in, but he obviously is a guy who's been around forever, been a champion, been a contender at featherweight. Like, in a lot of ways, do you feel like this is actually a bigger fight for you than fighting another ranked opponent? No offense to the guys who are ranked, but just because of who Frankie is.
Definitely. No, you completely right in that sense, like I said in some of the interviews before, and I told people before, I started watching UFC. The first guys that I watched, it was very early age in my life. It was Royce Gracie, and then later on, UFC was already starting getting big. More fighters, better skill, just the evolution of the sport itself. So Frankie was the guy that used to call my attention, because the skills wise, he was not even a jiu-jitsu guy fighting a boxer guy like back in those days. He was a guy that well-rounded, boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and all that, footworks and things like that. And right now I have just the opportunity to be fighting a living legend like that as in a main event. So it's let's say that's one of the biggest fight of my life, but every single fight, it is the biggest fight of my life. Robbie Fong was a guy that was super tough, fought him in Brazil. Brian Caraway, veteran, well-rounded. Even before UFC, fought guys like Jeff Kern, guys like that. So I just fought, like you said, the beginning, our conversation. I'm very grateful to being exposed such a young age of my life in UFC just to the best fighters, in the division, the best fighters, being able to fight the best fighters in the world. So for me right now is just another challenge. It's just another guy who's really good. But in the end of the day, he has two arms like I do. He has two legs, what I do. And we're gonna see who wants more.
And my last question, Pedro, Frankie Edgar means something. I mean, Frankie has lost to so few guys in his career. Beating Frankie really means something. And you look at the division, I think we all hope, or at least we imagine, we're going to see Peter Yan against Aljamain Sterling. I know your teammate Marlon Moraes has got Corey Sandhagen. Where do you feel like a win over Frankie puts you? Because after you're right there, I know you had the battle with Aljo, but do you feel like you're right in that mix where you want to be in terms of that title? Because it feels like right now bantamweight is better than it's ever been.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. We have so many good fights right now, right? So my teammate Marlon Moraes fighting Sede Hagen, another tough opponent which lost to Aljo. It just show like how good Aljo is as well. And if you see our fight a year ago was very close. I was able to work some things to if I fight Aljo again, it's gonna be a different. I'm not gonna just waiting for him to come bang it out with me. I know he works in a little bit different way. So for me, I had to take that loss to see that it's not about fighting every single time. Sometimes it's about working things different. We're talking about in a sport that it's constantly evolving. And we gotta just be smarter. And I was able to take that loss and take the whole year, seeing what I did and what I could do better. And I do believe like Aljo, if he would fight with a Peter Yan, and depending how that fight goes on a Saturday, I wanna make a big statement, and I wanna be the next for the title shot.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you.